All right, welcome everybody to our IRPE Conference 2025 Call for Proposals information session. We hope you find this information session helpful in planning for your proposal submissions for the conference. Please feel free to jump in at any time. If you have any questions that come up as we're going through the slides, there's no need to hold questions till the end, though there will be plenty of time for those as we get to the end. My name is Brad Trimble. I'm the Director of Learning and Strategy for the IRPE Group, and I also serve as a tri-chair with my other two tri-chairs, who I'm hoping will introduce themselves here next. Rosaline.
Hi, I'm Rosaline Ryan, and I work at Monterey Peninsula College, and I am one of the three tri-chairs.
And I am Marcel Gilmore, one of the tri-chairs, also Vice President of Professional Development for IRPE. And when I'm not doing that, I work at Mount San Antonio College.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide. Thank you. All right, so the theme for IRPE Conference 2025 is Building an Inclusive Future for Student Success. The description that we've come up with for that to help you connect the dots here is that IRPE professionals are uniquely positioned to be institutional change agents on California Community College campuses. Having broad access to institutional and student-level equity data and central roles in the key college-wide planning processes, all of this comes with significant responsibility at a time of increased focus on anti-racism, equity-minded change, and student-ready institutional change. So together, we seek to elevate the methods by which IRPE professionals are intentionally equitizing their work to keep student needs and priorities at the core of institutional research, planning, and effectiveness processes, supporting decision support, and helping to humanize students' experiences, treating them as individuals with unique needs and interests rather than mere data points. IRPE Conference 2025 will provide IRPE professionals with a dedicated space to strategize and share how they are informing and supporting equitable change, focused on identifying student needs and priorities at their institutions. So that's sort of a brief explanation of what we're hoping to get to with the theme. If you have any questions about interpreting what this might mean from a proposal perspective, please feel free to raise your hand or put something here in the chat, but we'll keep moving over the key elements here. I think we're ready for the next slide. So these are the three tracks that we have for IRPE Conference 2025. We have a planning and institutional effectiveness track. We have a research and evaluation track, and we also have an IRPE toolbox track. So your proposals can align with any one or multiple of these tracks. When you're submitting a proposal, you'll see that there's an opportunity to add one as a primary and maybe one as a secondary. So feel free to do that, and be aware that selecting one track or another, it's not going to end up having any sort of impact on whether or not your proposal gets accepted. You can find additional information about what we mean within each one of these tracks, including some examples on the IRPE website under the IRPE Conference page. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was tracking that. And I think we're ready for the next slide, which is impossible to read, but we're going to unpack each one of these elements. This is the proposal scoring rubric that the IRPE Conference Planning Committee will use to score your proposals. There's also a copy of this on the website, as mentioned before. So please feel free to access that. You can download a copy and have a more legible opportunity here. But we'll go over the key elements here next. So if folks have any questions about what we mean by particular things, hopefully we can get some of those questions asked. Please be aware that there are 28 possible points total for a proposal being submitted, and 1 to 2 point swings can mean a lot. So developing descriptions for proposals can be somewhat tedious at times. That, you know, it's usually good to have multiple eyes on it to ensure that folks, I guess, are perceiving it in the same way, and they're able to connect the dots about what things might be missing potentially in a proposal, or maybe certain areas to highlight things. So I'd recommend, if you have peers in the office, close colleagues in the research community that you might lean on, that you touch into them as much as possible. And be sure not to shortchange any of the sections, because like I said, those 1 to 2 point swings can mean a lot in the end, unfortunately. All right, I think we're ready for the next slide. So these are the various components that were in that matrix. You'll see there's obviously relevance to the conference theme. We need to see some alignment with that clearly, as that's a means by which we're trying to organize all of our content. There's also a section focused on demonstrating an impact on equity, diversity, inclusion, and/or accessibility. You obviously don't need to hit on all of those within your proposal. It can focus on one or another. The extent to which it aligns with all of these elements obviously is a positive aspect that will include higher scores. So just be sure to keep that in mind. Another section is demonstrating impact or potential impact on institutional effectiveness and student success, right? Many times we have studies that aren't complete when we're submitting them for a conference. You might not have your findings yet, but there might be a really great story about how you came up with this methodology, how you work collaboratively across your campus. All of that is going to be key context in helping the committee score your proposal and see the worth and value in it for the rest of the IRPE community and all of the conference participants, obviously. And that kind of gets back to what I was just mentioning here with the final section, which is final section of this slide. Providing a clear value to IRPE practitioners, right? That's where we want to focus this work on. We want to make sure that the proposals we're submitting are for the research community and maybe not more tailored to something like counseling or just maybe broad administrative management of an institution, but we have that specific focus on research, planning, effectiveness, equity, all of those pieces. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide, which is the next sections of the rubric. So we obviously need projects that are clearly described and well communicated. So please make sure that your language is as precise as possible, that you're being as concrete as possible in describing what it is. The higher level, the explanation of the work that's being done, the more difficult it is to see the value in it on a granular basis for participants. Though I will acknowledge, right, we have a very limited character count that we can provide in providing these contextualized responses, but just try to keep that in mind. And like I was saying, it's probably good to have a second set of eyes on it just to make sure that folks are seeing the value in what you're presenting. We're also interested in showcasing innovative approaches, resources, or tools for IRPE operations. So make sure that you're building a compelling case there, and encouraging participant engagement. It's kind of one of the big things we're shooting for here with IRPE Conference 2025 is sort of bringing a next level to the ways in which we're hoping folks will engage. So Rosaline, myself, and a couple others on the conference planning committee came up with that silly video that many of you have seen, but we hope that it is somewhat helpful in maybe unpacking some different ways that you might want to structure your proposal or your presentation, I should say, rather, so that it's not just here's what we did and 5 minutes of Q&A at the end or something like that, but that you're involving the folks in the room in such way. Maybe you bring something to the table like a way to maybe gamify it. Maybe there's an opportunity for some polling and then discussions based upon the polling. Those types of things can be helpful. And I think we're ready for the next slide. I'll check the chat here. I do see a couple of things in there. Thank you, Rosaline, for sharing these resources in the chat. All right, so I was getting a little bit into helpful hints. So backtrack a little bit. We want to help ensure that your proposals are conveying well-developed ideas, both succinctly and clearly, that you're providing clear learning outcomes so that committee members, when we're scoring, are going to see some concrete things that folks can take away from these. And I might recommend, reaching out to some faculty folks on campus, or maybe there's a dean of a particular area, academic area that you're close with. You might want to have them take a look at learning outcomes, right? As researchers, we're not always developing learning outcomes. And so it can be helpful to get some of that faculty perspective in coming up with something like this. I've already mentioned involving a colleague to review the proposal, and also recommend drafting in a Word doc and copy pasting into the submission form. Often it becomes challenging. There's a very small viewable area when you're inputting it into the submission form. It can easily lead to typos and maybe things that you might leave out and not want in there. So try to use Word if at all possible and copy paste that. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide. Some additional hints. This is what I was getting at earlier about audience engagement. Think about visual storytelling, producing slides that aren't just a wall of words that folks are looking at. Maybe there's an opportunity for some visual storytelling. Maybe you can include pictures. If you did a qualitative study, maybe some of the students that were involved in those or shared the findings more broadly with the campus community, the types of things that help us see and feel the great work that's going on at your many colleges and districts. Personal anecdotes are always helpful, right? We all have these stories that we want to bring into the fold. And so helping to ensure that we're conveying that through these presentations can help them make them much more engaging. Workshopping around a particular challenge or opportunity. Say you don't really have a lot that's concrete that you want to bring to the conference to present. Maybe you're just really struggling with something like student equity planning this time of year. Maybe it might be a great idea to bring sort of this structured engagement where you have people break up into particular challenges that you and your office might be facing with something like that, or vision aligned reporting, for example. Scenario-based things to respond to, opportunities for folks to kind of work together and be engaged and share their mental models for approaching work, right? The more that we can share collectively, the more we learn. That's sort of our motto, is for us, by us, within the research community. And we hope that our presentations provide that opportunity and I guess stage for something like that to happen as well. Audience generated content, that can also be very helpful. We've seen this as what's a good example? I guess like polling in the past, folks have built word clouds, things like that. But taking it maybe a step further and maybe building on that and having those be what sort of an unconference approach, where the audience generates the things that they want to talk about, and then they break up into groups based upon the topics that they've come up with. That might be a good approach as well. This will help lead to participant-led discussions. So I hope that's helpful in unpacking some of the ideas that we're having around outside the box presentations and what we're looking for there. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide. This is just kind of the overview of helpful information that's going to, the information that matters, I guess, which is about the last day to submit the proposal is Wednesday, December 4th at midnight. So keep that in mind. As you're submitting, you do have until the last minute of that day on the 4th to get it submitted. Obviously, the sooner you get it in, probably the better product it's going to be, the higher it's going to score. But just wants everybody to be aware that you do have that full day to submit it. You can also submit multiple proposals, and it's not going to affect the degree to which one gets accepted or doesn't. They're all weighed individually for their merit. So do take that into consideration. And all breakout sessions are going to be 60 minutes long. In the past, we've had some sessions that ran a little bit long, like one thread, one time slot. But now we went back to 60 minutes. It just helps keep things more streamlined. And there hasn't been a call for folks needing more time. So that's what we've been doing of late the last couple of years. Okay. I will also mention that based upon the proposals received, sometimes we make tweaks to the content. So in previous years, we've received a lot of dashboard presentations, for example. And so what we've done with those is we've collated those together and provided opportunities for folks to provide more succinct information, but we've been able to include more presentations in the conference because we have a focused dashboard session, for example, where everybody might have 20 minutes to share the dashboard that they've built and the use cases and why they came up with it, rather than devoting a full 60-minute to it. If there is a lot of useful information that's being shared, but there's like maybe too many dashboard, for example, we don't want to have a conference that's half dashboards, because folks want to see breadth and depth with the content that they're receiving for the conference. So there can be opportunities where we group content together based upon a particular alignment, things like that. So do keep that in mind. And with that, I think we're ready to move to the last slide, which is just Q&A. So I haven't seen any questions here in the chat. Rosaline, thank you very much. Oh, yeah, there was one about the PowerPoint, and Rosaline shared it, I believe. Nope, scoring rubric, helpful hints. Yes, so we will share the slide deck here in the chat.
Brad, can I jump in for a second?
Please.
I want to make sure that people understand that we are we are encouraging people to, when we say think outside the box, is that you're not submitting maybe your standard conference proposal, and not discouraging that either, you know. But if you've had a creative idea that doesn't necessarily lends itself to the standard model for conference presentations, that there's another way that you can try to creatively get that information across. We encourage it. We don't want to just be another cookie cutter, give us your PowerPoint and maybe you'll have some share pair in there and that's your presentation. But if you got something different, you know, we joke behind the scenes, at least I do, that, you know, maybe it's interpretive dance, but I don't really think you can do 60 minutes of interpretive dance. And if you could, I don't know if I want to see that, but you can make a compelling argument. And if you join forces with other colleges or other people when you at your institution and do 60 minutes of interpretive dance, maybe I need to see that. But for the most part, be creative. We'll hope to encourage you to just, if there's something that needs to be addressed in a presentation of some sort, and maybe it is not just your cookie cutter PowerPoint presentation, that hopefully we have a home for that. So the box is open. So if you got something, we're willing to give it an opportunity.
Rosaline?
Thanks for that, Marcel. I just wanted to add some specific ideas if you're still struggling to think of some ways to do out of the box stuff. There are a lot of digital tools that you could use. So there are gamification tools such as Kahoot or Mentimeter, or people have their cell phones with them. So leverage that, and you can use that as a way to get folks engaged. Other things you could try is almost along the lines of choose your own adventure, where you have a slide deck, but you build in a couple options at some points, right? So you have people vote. Do you want me to show you this? Do you want to discuss this? Or do you want to go down this path and discuss this? And then depending on how people vote, that would, you know, link you to a different version. It does require a little bit more work on the part of the presenter to have to think through two different scenarios. But it's a way to engage your audience. You can also use, there are tools such as digital whiteboards with digital sticky notes, where you can have folks participate with their phones and add sticky notes. So those are just some examples of ways to increase engagement.
Thank you, Rosaline. All right, any burning questions from the audience? Could we be more clear about anything? Well, if not, I think Marcel's going to send us off with an interpretive dance routine.
You don't want that in your life. You really don't.
I don't know, man. I think it could be pretty good. We could do it together. I'd roll with you.
Oh, that's great. That'd be great. Unrehearsed. That's gonna work out
Well, that's how
great.
that video was that we came up with. That's why I was so
I
wow.
believe you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. You can obviously feel free to reach out via email if something comes up here on the back end. I'm at btrimble@rpgroup.org. Not hard to find. So thank you very much. We hope to see all of you at RP Conference 2025. Take care.